They say marriage is about compromise, but no one ever tells you what to do when compromise turns into silence. I used to think love meant comfort, warmth, security, a hand to hold when life got hard. But now, standing alone in my kitchen with nothing but the ticking clock for company, I wonder if I traded passion for peace, and lost both. David, my husband, wasn't always distant. When we married 2 years ago, he was attentive, thoughtful, even romantic. He made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. But lately, his focus has shifted. Long work hours, endless business trips, and vague responses have replaced our once deep conversations. It's like I'm sharing a house with the ghost of the man I fell in love with. Then there's Jake, David's son from his first marriage. 21, quiet, polite. He moved in last month while waiting for his new apartment to be ready. Our relationship was cordial at best, awkward at times. I didn't expect to see much of him, let alone notice him. But things don't always go as planned. That morning, the house was unusually quiet. I was in the kitchen, still in my robe, sipping lukewarm coffee, replaying last night's argument in my head. David had missed our anniversary dinner, for the 2nd year in a row. His excuse? A client emergency. I didn't even argue this time. I just nodded and went to bed alone. The soft creak of the wooden stairs snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned to see Jake walking into the kitchen, shirtless, hair tousled from sleep, looking more like a man than the boy I had dismissed. He froze for a moment, eyes meeting mine. There was a tension in the air, subtle, unexpected. "Morning," he said, reaching for a glass. "Morning," I replied, voice steadier than I felt. "Want some coffee?" He nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Sure. Thanks." I poured him a cup, pretending not to notice how close he stood. The silence was thick, not uncomfortable, but charged. I handed him the mug, and for a moment, our fingers brushed. Just a second, barely anything. But I felt it. Electricity. Connection. And then it was gone. Jake took a sip, eyes flicking to mine. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah. Just didn't sleep well." He didn't press. Just nodded and leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee like nothing had happened. But something had shifted. I couldn't explain it, but I knew it. That moment, innocent on the surface, stayed with me long after he left the kitchen. Later that day, I found myself staring at the same spot where we had stood, questioning why my heart had raced over something so small. But deep down, I knew it wasn't small at all. Something was changing. And I wasn't sure I was ready.
The days that followed were filled with a strange tension, as if the air in the house had thickened, charged with something neither of us dared name. Caleb and I avoided being alone together, yet our paths always seemed to cross, too often to be coincidence. A glance across the dinner table, an accidental brush of shoulders in the hallway, lingering conversations that never quite crossed the line but hovered dangerously close. I could feel it, something shifting inside me. The emotional distance from my husband had long ago become a chasm, one neither of us tried to bridge anymore. He came home late, left early, and when we did speak, it was clipped and cold. If he noticed the change in me, he didn't show it. In his world, I was a fixture, a silent, predictable presence. But Caleb, he saw the cracks, the weariness, the quiet longing I tried so hard to bury. And slowly, despite every voice in my head warning me, I found myself drawn to him, pulled into a gravity I couldn't resist. One evening, as I stood in the kitchen drying dishes, I felt his presence before I heard him. Caleb leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me with a gaze that felt both familiar and entirely new. "You're quiet," he said. "I've had a lot on my mind," I replied, not turning to face him. He stepped closer, his voice softer now. "About the other night?" I nodded, setting down the dish towel. It was a moment. We were both vulnerable. He didn't speak right away, and when I finally met his eyes, I saw something unspoken flicker there: uncertainty, desire, guilt. All tangled together. "I haven't stopped thinking about it," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart raced. I should have walked away, changed the subject, anything to avoid what I knew was coming. But I stood still, rooted in place, unable to move. "Caleb, we can't." "I know," he said quickly. "I know it's wrong. But that doesn't change how I feel." His words hung heavy between us, undeniable now. There was no going back to the easy companionship we once shared. The line was still there, but it was thin, frayed, barely holding. I'm not asking for anything, he continued, stepping closer, his eyes searching mine. I just needed you to know. I swallowed hard, my emotions a whirlwind of confusion and temptation. This can't happen, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. He nodded, backing away, respectful despite the storm between us. I'll keep my distance. I promise. As he turned to leave, I felt a pang of something I didn't want to name, regret, maybe. Or the sinking realization that the decision wasn't as final as I wanted it to be. For weeks, we lived in the shadow of that unspoken truth. Caleb's confession hanging between us like an unfinished sentence. He kept his promise, maintaining distance, but I felt the shift in every glance, every fleeting moment of silence that once held comfort but now pulsed with tension. I tried to throw myself into routine, meals, errands, the sterile hum of daily life. But it all felt hollow, mechanical. My husband's presence was a ghostly echo. He didn't ask questions, didn't notice the strained air or the silence at the dinner table. In his world, I still filled the role of wife, nothing more. But in mine, I was unraveling. One night. The weight of it all became too much. I stepped outside, hoping the cool night air would ground me. The sky was cloudless, stars scattered like distant lanterns, and the world was quiet. Except for footsteps, familiar ones. Caleb stood at the edge of the porch, hesitant. Didn't mean to disturb you. You didn't, I said softly. We stood in silence for a moment, the distance between us thick with everything we hadn't said since that night. Finally, I turned to him. This isn't fair to either of us. I know, he said, his voice raw. But pretending nothing's changed doesn't make it true. I looked away, my chest tight. He was right. We were both caught in a storm of emotions we hadn't asked for. The connection between us wasn't born from recklessness, it had crept in slowly, fed by neglect, silence, and unmet needs. I care about you, I admitted, the words trembling on my lips. But caring isn't enough. Not like this. Caleb nodded, eyes glistening with restraint. I just wanted you to feel seen. Even if I can't be the one to give you what you deserve. There it was, clarity. Not desire, not temptation, but recognition. He wasn't asking for more. He was offering understanding. A mirror to the loneliness I'd carried in silence. I stepped closer, placing a hand gently on his arm. Thank you for seeing me. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a moment of closure, quiet and profound. He smiled faintly, then turned and walked away, leaving me in the stillness of the night. As I watched him disappear into the darkness, I felt a strange sense of peace. The storm had passed, not with destruction, but with resolution. And though the path ahead remained uncertain, I knew I could face it with clearer eyes and a steadier heart.